In the span of about 2 years, Deep Purple fired a lead singer, nearly hired a total unknown off the New York club circuit, dragged their most famous frontman back into a band he'd already left twice, watched a guitarist throw a drink at a cameraman on stage, and then lost that same guitarist for good mid-tour, forcing them to call up one of the greatest guitar players alive with zero notice. All that happened around one album. This is the story of The Battle Rages On. And trust me, the title is not subtle, because that's exactly what's happening behind the scenes. Let's rewind to where we left off. Slaves and Masters had come out in 1990 with Joe Lynn Turner behind the mic. And commercially, it just didn't land the way the label wanted. So as the band started writing and tracking the follow-up, the record company got involved, and not in a supportive way. According to Turner and Gillan's own accounts over the years, RCA and BMG essentially looked at the new material and said they weren't putting it out unless the classic lineup of Mark II was back together. That meant one thing: Turner was out mid-session before the album was even finished. Now here's the part of the story a lot of casual fans don't know. Deep Purple didn't go straight from Turner to Gillan. There was a guy in between, and his name is Mike DiMeo. If you don't know DiMeo, he'd gone to become the longtime voice of the New York metal band Riot, fronting them for well over a decade and recording albums like Sons of Society and Through the Storm. But back in 1992, he was still just a name on the club scene until Ritchie Blackmore personally scouted him and brought him in to replace Turner. DiMeo spent around 3 months working on material with Roger Glover, and by most accounts, it wasn't a bad fit vocally. The problem was politics. John Lord and the rest of the band reportedly felt DiMeo, only 23 at the time, was too young and too green to be handed the keys to Deep Purple's 25th anniversary album. The label eventually stepped in and pulled the plug on his tenure altogether. So close and then gone.
It was different. It was much more enjoyable than the Perfect Strangers, House of Blue Light type of period.
This brings us to the reunion nobody in the band actually wanted, except the accountants. Ian Gillan had already released 2 solo albums after his last Purple exit, and by all accounts, he wasn't exactly clamoring to walk back into that dressing room. Ritchie Blackmore, for his part, fought the hardest of anyone. He did not want Gillan back, full stop. But John Lord, Roger Glover, and Ian Pace all sided with the label's demands, and Blackmore was outvoted. Late in 1992, Gillan stepped back into the band. And here's a twist that makes the album's title so fitting. The music was already written and tracked for Turner and then DiMeo. Gillan wasn't writing from scratch. He was handed a stack of instrumental tapes and told to rewrite the vocal melodies and lyrics from top to bottom to make them his own. Blackmore hated what Gillan did with it. He preferred the original melodic lines that had been built for the other singers. The tension between the two of them just didn't inspire the album's name. It basically created it. Out of that friction came The Battle Rages On, released in 1993, and 2 tracks were pushed as commercial singles. The first is Anya, an Eastern-tinged, sprawling epic that a lot of fans consider the best thing on the record, and notably one of the only new songs from the era that both Gillan and Blackmore actually enjoyed playing live. The second is Time to Kill, which was aimed squarely at rock radio to build momentum going into the tour. The title itself also got pushed hard as a promotional single to radio, thanks to that stomping heavy main riff. There's also the title track, which is probably my favorite song from the album. I really like the main guitar riff on that one, so that's another notable track. So the album's out, the 25th anniversary tour kicks off, and this is where things go completely off the rails. By late 1993, the hatred between Gillan and Blackmore on that European leg was not subtle. It all boiled over on November 9th, 1993, at the NEC Arena in Birmingham. Blackmore was furious about the whole situation and initially refused to even walk out on stage. The rest of the band had to start Highway Star without him as a 4-piece. He eventually stormed out mid-song, and because the show was being professionally filmed, a camera operator got in close to capture the moment. Blackmore did not appreciate that. He grabbed a glass of water and threw it directly at the camera lens. The footage survives. You can watch the exact frame where the water hits. The picture cuts straight to Gillan singing with the water dripping down the lens. And you can find it on YouTube. I'm showing a clip, but you can just search How I Star from Come Hell or High Water. 4 shows later, on November 17th in Helsinki, Blackmore played what turned out to be his final concert with Deep Purple. Rather than fly out for the already booked December dates in Japan, he simply quit mid-tour with Japanese arenas full of ticket holders waiting. This is where it gets almost unbelievable. Management scrambled and phoned Joe Satriani's people to see if he'd fill in. Satriani's first reaction was to say no, and not politely. He was a massive Deep Purple fan, and the idea of stepping into Blackmore's shoes actually offended him. He told his manager not to call back and hung up the phone. 30 minutes later, he called back himself. Satriani skipped the tour tape he was given and said went back to the source material, leaning on Machine Head to relearn the songs as close to the original studio versions as possible. He met the band through a pub in Japan, ran through a day and a half of rehearsal, and 3 more days in Tokyo studio, and by every account, the extra rehearsal barely mattered because he already had it down cold. When he worried his tone wasn't close to Blackmore's, the band's response was, it doesn't matter. He saved the Japanese leg completely, but when it came time to talk about a permanent slot in the band, Satriani turns it down. He was locked into a solo recording contract with Sony and Epic at the time, and honestly, joining an established classic rock institution long-term just wasn't the move he wanted to make for his career. He stuck around informally into 1994, and then he moved on. So Deep Purple is now down a guitarist for the second time in the saga, and Ritchie Blackmore isn't done yet either, because next time on The Family Tree, we're following him straight into a rainbow reunion for one final album, Stranger in Us All. And after that chapter closes, Deep Purple will finally land on the guitarist, who ends up sticking around for good, a player who become one of the longest tenured members in that band's entire history. So that will be coming up next. Check out the playlist of the Deep Purple Family Tree. I don't know how many videos I have. It's probably close to 50 at this point. But I'm going to keep going. And like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.